It did not begin with a loud speech or a public debate. It began with a whisper in Brussels. A single leak, little more than a rumor, carried the weight of a storm. Behind closed doors, Donald Trump stood before NATO leaders with a demand that could shape continents. His words were sharp: raise tariffs on Africa, choke its lifeblood, force it down. The target was clear: oil, gold, and sovereignty. What followed was not silence, but fire. From that fire, Africa's response shook the world. The leak was no accident. From the very room where the plan was made, one conscience broke. A memo left the hands of a European official who could not stay quiet. Passed to a journalist, it told of a new war. The orders were clear: tariffs to weaken Africa's exports, restrictions to cut supply, pressure until dependence returned. Africa's oil and gold were not seen as shared wealth. They were seen as tools to control. The story spread fast. Headlines declared, Europe prepares to strike Africa's oil and gold. On radios, in markets, in homes, people spoke with disbelief. Online, young voices asked the same thing in many ways. How long will others decide Africa's future? In Ouagadougou, Captain Ibrahim Traoré did not see rumor. He called it what it was: economic war. Before dawn, he called his council. His words were clear. This is not about tariffs, he said. This is about control. If we bow today, we are slaves tomorrow. His message reached Mali, Guinea, and beyond. Within days, leaders of the Sahel gathered. Not in Paris, not in Geneva, but on African ground. The room was tense. The stories were the same. Oil and gold leaving through unfair contracts. Villages poor while foreign firms grew rich. Now, the choice was not about aid. It was about survival with dignity. Traoré spoke first. If they strike us with tariffs, we strike with what they fear most. We close the valve. No oil, no gold. The room fell quiet. Then came nods. Voices aligned. The decision spread through streets and airwaves, not through papers. In Bamako, Niamey, and Ouagadougou, crowds shouted, oil and gold are not theirs, they are ours. Markets shook. Families worried about food, medicine, school fees. But pride rose with fear. For the first time, leaders were not begging. They were saying no. A student raised a sign: better hunger for a year than slavery for a century. Traoré went on national TV. His words were simple. We may suffer now, he said, but suffering with dignity is better than life on our knees. The words cut like steel. Across cities and villages, people repeated them. The whisper had become a chorus. Stand firm, we are with you. In Europe, shock came fast. Frankfurt traders watched gold climb by the hour. Paris warned that Niger's uranium powered half its reactors. Milan feared Congo's cobalt and lithium could vanish overnight. In Brussels, leaders saw the truth. Europe relied on Africa more than admitted. Oil, gold, uranium, cobalt, these were not extras but foundations. And Traoré held the valve. Washington pressed harder. Donald Trump's team told allies, hold firm, raise tariffs, cut Africa off. But in Europe, not all agreed. A German minister warned, punish Africa and we punish ourselves. Without cobalt, cars stop. Without uranium, grids fail. The words were not written down, too risky. But doubt spread in secret halls. Pressure grew outside. Unions warned of layoffs. Lawmakers asked why workers should suffer in a war over Africa's wealth. Commentators admitted what once was denied. Africa had more power than believed. Yet Trump's voice was louder. At rallies, Donald Trump said Africa must be taught its place. His tone was firm. His words spread. But cracks in the old order widened. While Europe argued, BRICS moved fast. Beijing gave credit lines. Moscow offered gold and oil deals. New Delhi signed crude agreements. The message was clear. Africa was not alone. Yet Traoré warned, do not swap one master for another. Economists built reserves. Engineers stabilized grids. Troops guarded mines. For the first time, Africa was not reacting, but shaping rules. Brussels struck back. Banks froze African accounts. Cargo ships with oil and gold were stalled. Insurance firms refused to cover shipments. Cyber attacks hit Ouagadougou and Bamako, crashing systems. Media called Traoré reckless. Papers warned Africans would soon turn on their leaders. On the ground, life grew harder. Food cost more. Medicine was scarce. Families felt the squeeze. But instead of breaking, people closed ranks. Farmers pooled crops, students kept schools open, volunteers carried food to villages. Hardship was not new. This time, it brought unity. Soon, escalation rose. Drones circled the Sahel. Cocoa and coffee faced new tariffs. Embassies warned against travel. Projects froze. The goal was clear: drain morale, make resistance seem hopeless. But Africa's resolve deepened. At an AES meeting, Traoré said, "They think hardship will break us." Hardship is not new. His words became a shield. AES answered. Joint forces guarded convoys. Local banks made gold-backed payments. Engineers kept power grids alive. Burkina Faso built a reserve fund from oil and gold. These were not last moves. They were first steps of independence. Then came a turning point. On TV, Traoré stood with miners, farmers, and engineers. His words were brief. "They call us reckless. I say we are free. Oil and gold are Africa's. From today, they flow with dignity or not at all." The message spread fast. Murals in Lagos, cheers in Kinshasa, posts across the diaspora. If Traoré stands, we stand. The world noticed. In South America, activists compared Africa's fight to theirs. In Asia, voices spoke of a new axis of dignity. The more the West tried to isolate Africa, the stronger Africa looked. What was meant to divide was now forging unity. Then came another shock, a second leak from the same journalist. This time it was contracts. Draft deals showed plans to privatize oil and gold, to lease fields for 50 years, to send money into offshore accounts. Tariffs were only a cover. Control was the aim. The story spread fast. Crowds stormed foreign offices. Leaders held emergency talks. Traoré spoke again. "The mask is off. This is theft called policy." Across Africa, anger turned to resolve. Shortages now felt like proof that leaders were defending the people. Europe denied the papers, but the numbers were exact. The signatures real. Analysts confirmed the contracts matched old colonial patterns. For many, it was not a surprise. It was proof of old warnings. That control never ended, only changed form. Momentum rose. AES launched audits of foreign contracts. Protests filled Lagos, Kinshasa, Dar es Salaam. Diaspora groups rallied with signs, "No more hidden chains." The fight was no longer about tariffs, but Africa's right to its own wealth. In Brussels, silence deepened. In Washington, the tone hardened. Donald Trump doubled down, telling allies not to bend. To yield to Africa, he said, would break the global order. His words echoed. But the tide was moving. Across Africa, something had shifted. Burkina Faso's oil and gold were no longer seen as plunder. They became symbols of power. The cost was real. Families faced hunger. Villages tightened belts. But dignity held. At the AES summit close, Traoré stood before flags. His words carried far. They thought hunger would silence us. Instead, it woke us. From today, Africa is not a marketplace. They will meet us as equals, or not at all. They were more than words. They opened a new chapter, Africa's story written by its own hands, where oil and gold meant strength, not weakness. From that day, the world could not ignore Africa. If you want more breaking world stories told clear and true, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring the news that matters.